Hey guys, welcome back. We've got a big event coming up in the next 5 to 10 years. It's called the Great Wealth Transfer. It's the biggest transfer of wealth that any generation has ever seen in the history of mankind. It's the Great Wealth Transfer from the baby boomers to Gen X and the millennials. Now, you might be counting on that inheritance. However, you might want to think twice about that. Let's get into it. Now, I'm going to be a little candid with you guys. I've only experienced the inheritance process, not personally, but from my father's perspective, my mom's perspective, and now my mother-in-law's perspective. And I want to talk to you guys about what just happened to my mother-in-law that, may help you guys navigate this inheritance process in general, okay? Because we are on the cusp of this baby boomer generation passing on the legacy that they leave behind in the form of monetary value and assets. Okay, you've got houses, you've got 401ks, insurance policies, so on and so forth. And so this is going to be, a big topic, very soon, probably within the next 5 to 10 years. I mean, my parents are in their mid 60s and my wife's parents are in their 70s. Okay, so we talk about this from time to time. I'm 45 and I'm fortunate enough to where my parents and my in-laws, it's basically a two-person house or a two-child household between my brother and then my wife and her brother. Okay, so it's pretty much straight down the line, 50-50, and we've all agreed to that. However, things can change. That could change overnight. We can't predict how people are going to feel about things as they get older. And unfortunately for my mother-in-law, okay, I'll give you the story, the kind of the quick summary breakdown. My mother-in-law, she had one brother from her father, and then her father divorced her mother when she was around 12 years old, and she stayed in the same house that she grew up in. And her mother remarried years later and had 2 more children. Okay, so 4 children in total. 2 from one father and 2 from another father. Okay. And recently, well, not recently, but I think it was around 10 years ago maybe, that her father finally passed away. They did not have a good relationship. That divorce was ugly. And her father was basically an alcoholic, unfortunately. Now, she did not inherit anything from her father. Her father had 4 properties in Michigan in total, and her brother got all of it. I think he was kind of a sort of a patriarchal kind of guy, and he left all of that inheritance to his son and then his grandchildren from that son. And so my wife didn't inherit anything of that. My brother-in-law, nothing as well, and my mother-in-law, nothing as well. 4 properties. I mean, this was probably worth $400,000. And then, more recently, her mother finally passed. She lived a good life. She lived to, I think it was 93, something like that. And I went to all their family reunions over the years, or not family reunions, but Christmas and holidays. And, I got to know them really well. Really nice people in general. And, but there was 2 sides to that family. One side was my mother-in-law's side, where there were 2 kids. And then the other side was from the more recent marriage, where there was 2 kind of younger kids. Now, my mother-in-law's mom recently passed away. And she assumed that she was going to get an equal share of the proceeds of the property, basically just a house in general. Now, her stepdad did have, I think, retirement, and the 2 younger kids only got the retirement. The 2 older kids who were part of the first family, they didn't get any of that retirement, which I kind of thought, makes a little bit of a sense, but not really, to be honest. Those 2 kids were part of that household. So, that's one thing my mother-in-law was upset about. But she assumed that she was going to get a full share of this house because her dad had built this house, and then this new man came into that life and just walked right in, didn't even pay for the house. I mean, I think probably over the years he paid for a mortgage on the house, but he didn't build it from the scratch. He didn't buy it from scratch. So she assumed she was going to get, 25% of this house. And literally, like 2 weeks ago, or maybe it was last week, she finds out she's only going to get 1/6 of the house. Her mother, who said that she was disappointed in how her father had given 100% of the assets to her brother. She said she was disappointed and that she was going to get a fair portion of the assets. Well, that didn't happen. Okay. Her mother decided to give only 1/6 to my mother-in-law, and then 1/6 to that brother who got 100% of everything, and then a third and a third to the other two children. Can you believe that? I've talked about generational wealth on this channel from time to time, and it's just unbelievable to me that parents would do that to their children and almost, in a sense, pit their children against each other, in a sense, because now, my mother-in-law, how is she supposed to kind of hang out with her brother and her sister if, she felt like, in a sense, abandoned, in a sense, right? She's only going to get 1/6 of the proceeds of this house. I think it's going to be sold this Friday. And the brother who got 100% of those properties, he doesn't even know. So what is that conversation going to be like? I think he's going to find out today or tomorrow. And who knows if he's going to sign off on the sale of that property. We'll see what happens. But I just can't believe that. And the reason I'm telling you guys this story is because I want to warn you about what's going to happen with this great wealth transfer. The same thing is going to happen. This same story that I'm seeing today with my mother-in-law and even with my father himself. I'll do that in another video. He had a similar situation when his parents passed and when his parents raised him, but I digress. We're going to see this same thing happen with the great wealth transfer. And so you want to have good, clear communication with your elders, whether it's your grandparents or your parents directly. Okay, you want to have everything in writing, whether it's a will or a trust or a ladybird deed. This was a new thing I learned about with my mother-in-law. Her mom signed off on a ladybird deed, I think like 9 days before she passed. And in that ladybird deed, she set up that whole 30%, 33%, 1/6 for my mother-in-law. And I thought to myself, oh my God, I can't believe that, But that's what it is. And here are the two things that you got to be aware of when it comes to inheritance. Okay, the first thing is favoritism. Okay, parents favor many of their children. Maybe it's the youngest, maybe it's the middle one, maybe it's the oldest. You never know how that favoritism is going to play out. And you probably need to talk to your parents about this, That baby boomer generation, they're going to have favorites, okay? Especially if they had maybe more than 2 kids. They may favor that third kid or that fourth kid. You don't know. Or maybe it's the kid who stays with them the longest. This isn't a video trying to, get people to, go at odds at each other. This is just for your awareness of how the reality sets in of, when people pass, there's an inheritance. And unfortunately, families fall apart because of this favoritism. Brothers and sisters, they fight amongst themselves. Even grandchildren might fight for a piece because sometimes grandchildren are part of those wills and part of that inheritance. So that's something to be considerate of, is favoritism. Now, the other thing to be considerate of, the number 2 thing is sympathy, okay? Parents sympathize with children who are not as successful in life. Now, I think part of the reason why my mother-in-law isn't getting as much with this inheritance is I think it's because of sympathy. Okay, the other 2 children are not as successful as my mother-in-law. My mother-in-law and my father-in-law, they're very successful individuals. That's why we're staying at this property while we're on vacation. They paid for this whole thing because they've done very well. They've saved their money over the last 30, 40 years. My father-in-law, he just always stuck, probably 6 to 10% in his 401k, and they're living great. They don't need the money necessarily from my grandmother-in-law, but it hurts. It hurts my mother-in-law quite a bit. I could tell, and I was kind of pissed off myself. I just couldn't believe it. After going to all those Christmas get-togethers, everyone's got a happy face on, and then when the money rolls around, no one cares. You would think that her stepbrother and stepsister would just evenly split the house proceeds with her, but they're not. I don't think they're going to be honest. I'd be surprised. And I do think there are tax implications. If you get inherited, let's say 33%, it's not that easy to give a portion to, let's say, someone who got a lesser amount, because there's tax reasons involved. There's less tax. There's no taxes, I think, when you just inherit some wealth, depending on how wealthy you are. I think at a certain point, the wealth tax does come in, inheritance tax does come in. I'm not sure what those numbers are, but there wouldn't be any involved in this one. But if you are to give away some money, there might be taxes involved. So who knows how that plays out. But just be aware of this. The great wealth transfer is coming, and it's trillions of dollars, guys. Trillions of dollars. And a lot of families are going to have this same problem that my mother-in-law is going through, and that my father kind of went through as well when his mother passed. So be aware of it. Talk to your parents, talk to your grandparents if they have sort of a will set up for grandparents, whatever it may be. And talk to your brothers and sisters. Get on the same page. I think that my mother-in-law is a baby boomer, and I think that generation, they just don't like to talk with each other in general about sensitive topics, especially when it comes to money. And so that's what you got to consider, is how you're going to talk to your family, be on the same page, have an agreement amongst yourselves that you want to split things evenly if you can. So I don't know. These are just my thoughts. I've been kind of upset about it this week. I was kind of bummed for my mother-in-law. She's been bummed a little bit about this week, but I think for her, it's more about closure. She wants to just get rid of the house and get her little, 1/6 of a portion of the house and just move on, at the end of the day. So, but anyways, it is going to be a thing that's coming up. And there are a lot of rules, guys, when it comes to, like, if somebody was already taking required minimum distributions and they pass and you inherit that, you have to do the same thing. You have to take RMDs for 10 years until that account has been, cleared out of all the money. So there's a lot of interesting tax implications that you have to deal with. And I think that my generation that I'm speaking to, people between the ages of 35 and 55, that's my audience. We're going to be coming through this scenario. And these are rules you should kind of think about and talk about with your parents, and get a game plan set up, guys, because it's happening. This is life. It's reality. And former YouTuber that I had a video kind of go viral with. I did an intro video with him. His name is Robert's Active Retirement. I kind of celebrated with him because he went viral. He was talking about the realities of being 77. And so that generation, they're going through these realities, and this is part of it, setting up an inheritance. That's an important part to this whole thing. It's life, And, talking about generational wealth, I would hope that your parents or your grandparents want to set you up for success, and you want to be a part of that. So hopefully you guys are able to be a part of that. Unfortunately for some families, it just doesn't work out that way. And, you gotta take it as it is and roll with the punches, right? So anyways, I don't know. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. Have you guys seen these type of problems? Maybe you're going through it yourself with your family. I hope not, but it is a reality we're all going to have to contend with. And so yeah, let me know in the comments below what you guys think. And if you guys like the content, like and subscribe. Take a look at my previous video. And everyone, have a great day. Thanks.